We want you to sit back and listen, but we need you to stand up and fight. Do you want to get involved and help get our party back to its roots and to success at the ballot box? You can make your contribution to Democrats for America's Future and help us keep this show going and to elect Democrats who will stand up for democratic principles. Go to americasdemocrats.org and click on Donate at the top of the page. Welcome to the 21st Century Democrats exclusive post-election briefing. I'm your host, Jim Cuddy, and joined today by America's #1 populist, radio commentator, columnist, and author, Jim Hightower, and author and progressive advocate, Kathleen Kennedy Townsend. In addition, we'll also be joined a little later on. She's standing by, Sarah Benzing, the campaign manager of Senator Sherrod Brown's successful re-election race in Ohio. Now, before we get to the takes of our guest on the 2012 election and what it means, a reminder to all of you listening, you can send us your questions on Twitter, at 21stDems, that's the @ 21STDEMS, or by email, info@21stdems.org. And I want to say thank you to Kathleen Kennedy Townsend and Jim Hightower for joining us today as 21st Century Democrats to share in the delight over President Obama's re-election and some new Democratic muscle in the United States Senate. Thank you for joining us, both of you.
Great to be
Hi,
with you.
this is... Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. All right, I tell you what. So I know we've got both of you, Kathleen. We appreciate you joining us. Jim, great to talk to you again as well. Why don't we jump into the questions because we have a lot of them to get to, and we're going to kind of jump around throughout the time that we have together on a lot of different topics. So first question to you, Jim, is pretty simple. What happened in this election, and why did it go the way it went?
Well, what happened is we had a tremendous progressive victory pretty much across the board because ordinary people rejected the horse hash, the head in the sand, the elitist right-wing Tommy rot that was being peddled by Romney Ryan and gang, not only electing Obama, but then also putting such terrific new senators as Elizabeth Warren and Tammy Baldwin and just numbers of others in there. And by the way, the House got stronger. Alan Grayson's coming back to the Congress from Orlando, Florida. Rick Nolan up in Duluth, Minnesota, bringing a old-time kind of Hubert Humphrey progressive voice back into the Congress. And I would add one more thing, which is that we had just enormous victories on initiatives, state and local initiatives. For example, the two states, Colorado and Montana, passed by overwhelming majority, 72% in Colorado, 76% in Montana, resolution calling on Congress to send a constitutional amendment to the states for ratification that would overturn Citizens United. And about dozens of cities, more than 100 cities, also passed similar resolutions.
Kathleen, your thought?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very exciting. And I think it's exciting not only for this election, but for the future, because young people came out in greater numbers, and they voted Democratic. Hispanics came out in greater numbers and voted Democratic. Asians. So if you look at the future of the United States, this is a group. These are groups that are going to be stronger in the future, and the numbers are going to be greater. So that is also very positive. So if you look at the future, it's great, and you can see. I mean, just today there was Boehner who had said Obamacare is settled law. I think had to retract that statement because the Tea Party was not willing to accept that. So you see that there's groups in the Republican Party who want to move ahead, saw what happened in the election, and there are others who don't.
And Kathleen, let me keep this to you. Should the Democrats cross the aisle and meet Republicans on some of the big issues, or stand tough and fight like heck for the president's agenda?
Well, I think they will. I mean, I think the president's agenda is the wise agenda. And, I mean, I think that the Republicans will have to, realize. I mean, the question is, do they care more about debt, which is really a challenge for our country long term down the road, or do they care more about taxes cuts for the wealthy? And the people have spoken. I mean, not only through the election, but through the polling. All the polls show huge majorities for tax cuts on the wealthy. So, I mean, I'm sure there are going to be compromises on one thing or another, but I think on the major issue of getting the debt under control and taxing the wealthy Americans, I think you have to do it.
Okay.
I really don't think you have a choice for the good of the country.
Now, Jim, I want to turn to you. We've got a question, and we've got a lot of questions coming in from listeners. This is from C.C. Hunt, and the question is, how can we keep the momentum going? Great to win the election, but let us not lose on the issues that matter to us. Jim Hightower.
Bingo, that's exactly right. Let's start with this. As Kathleen was indicating, it's the progressive base that turned out here. We are the ones who elected Barack Obama this time. He cannot claim that it was moderates or that it was a bunch of Republicans or independents or Wall Street, et cetera. These were labor, women, tremendous turnout of women, and big percentage for Obama. Latinos, African Americans, environmentalists, poor people, LBGT community, students, New Deal defenders, right on down the line. And so our progressive forces cannot now let him, Obama, and his insular White House staff put us on the back shelf again. We've got to get in his face now and stay there, making demands wherever he goes, publicly protesting any equivocation and capitulation. That doesn't mean we're going to win everything, but let's not start with compromise. Let's start with what it is we actually want. For example, I think we need a Robin Hood tax on Wall Street. That's where the money is. So let's, they say to us, well, we don't have enough money. Well, America has a huge sum of money. What we've got to do is to go to where that money is, and that's on Wall Street. Put a little incremental tax on each transaction on Wall Street, and it's tens of billions of dollars. I've seen a number of $350 billion that could come from that tax alone, and that means we could then put that into such things as the expansion of our infrastructure, an aggressive green jobs program, top quality education, Medicare for all, the things that America actually needs for percolate up economics that delivers prosperity for all.
You're listening to the post-election briefing brought to you by 21st Century Democrats. We're speaking with radio commentator, columnist, author Jim Hightower, America's #1 populist, and author and progressive advocate Kathleen Kennedy Townsend also joining us. Now, along the same lines of that previous question, Krista Morgan asks, and maybe Kathleen, you'd like to take this one, so much of the news coverage after the election focused on Obama not having a mandate, so he has to compromise with the Republican House. Is it hopeless that the GOP will compromise? What can Obama hope to get from them?
Well, my thought would be that they have all pledged that they won't raise taxes, and so what I think will happen is that the Bush tax cuts will go into effect, and that everybody will allow that to go into effect, and then from those higher tax rates, the Republicans that can then claim, well, we didn't raise taxes, this happened automatically, and then based on that, there will be some compromise. So you won't catch them having to actually raise taxes themselves.
Some of the things that they're...
Is that clear? That's
yeah.
kind of interesting.
But
yeah.
Aren't some of the things...
I think that's what will happen.
Aren't some of the things that the Republicans...
Also, and you can see from Bloomberg has said, and who is from Wall Street, in fact, a very big defender of Wall Street, believes that there should be a tax on carried interest. So, even Wall Street people are understanding that the carried interest freebie should go away. So I think that's a big deal as well.
Let me ask, and this can be to both of you, aren't some of these things that Republicans refusing to do conceivably will hurt them in the long run, and they could actually do themselves some good by taking in some of these changes that the Democrats are asking for?
Well, I'll jump in on that. Yes, of course, they should, but they won't. But I think for Democrats, for progressives, for just rank-and-file Americans who really want to see America move on, we have to say one thing, and that is the Boehners of the world, the Paul Ryans, the Cantors, they lost. Their whole idea was put out there that government can't do anything. The people rejected that idea. By the way, we noticed people that the government was doing something in the Northeast with the big storm that hit there toward the end of the campaign. Shows that we do need a government. Secondly, they say that corporations should be turned loose because they are the job creators. The people rejected that idea because obviously they're not creating any jobs. Their whole tax plan, the Ryan budget, all of that was rejected. So there's a mandate for Obama to push ahead strongly on a sensible budget that really does get to the need of ordinary people in this country, and to push for a tax policy that gets the money that we need as a public, as a society, as a civilization, to move America forward, not take America back like the Tea Party has. They've taken us back to the robber barons already. How far back are we willing to go? Why don't we move forward? And that means putting a real agenda, an FDR, LBJ, JFK style of agenda forward for the American people to get a hold of, to realize that this is an agenda that is them.
All right.
I think thank you, Jim. You sound great. I think one of the really interesting things that will happen is what goes on in Paul Ryan's head and in his politics, because you saw during the last month of this election, Romney really sliding towards the middle much further than he was during the primary season, and Ryan had to slide along with him. And the question, and clearly he started to do better as he went to the middle, and people said that. So the question for Paul Ryan will be, does he stick to his Tea Party roots, or does he say, look, I want the future, I want to run for president, and I saw what happens if you run for president in this new world where the white population is shrinking, I'm going to have to move myself. So just for his own political future, I'm very curious as to what he now thinks. He's only had to before campaign in a small congressional seat. I think he went down about 15 points in that own seat. So I think, politics teaches you things, and if you've campaigned around the country, he might have learned something. I don't know, but it's a question.
Okay. Now, we just got a tweet in from somebody. It's at WVKO1580. And we should have a march on D.C. to press the president to do what we, his base, and what we, his base, want, and show Congress we have his back. Thoughts? Jim, why don't we start with you?
Well, yes, is the answer to that. I don't think it has to start with a march on D.C., but as I say, wherever he goes, he should be confronted by us in coalition, in protest, demonstrating in the streets around his event to say what he's doing is not what we want done, or what he's doing is what we want done, both positive and negative reinforcement. And the same thing with our Congress critters, by the way, to make clear that there's a people's agenda that is different than the kind of patty cake that they seem to be playing in Washington, D.C. So I think it can come to a march on Washington at some point, but you don't have to wait for the big event. So much can take place and is taking place at the local level. In fact, that's where the great progressive action has been for the last 2 decades, for ordinary people just doing it themselves at a local level, at a state level, and there's great progressive activity out there. And now we just need to bring that to bear on our national office holders.
Kathleen, should we march on D.C.?
Look, I love marches, but I don't know if we could. I think if you're going to do a march, you have to make sure that you're going to get a lot of people. And I think that it's not. I don't know how many people you could actually get out and march. I mean, one of the challenges is that we've gotten less accustomed to marching than 40 years ago when there was a large protest. So I'm wary about that unless you could assure it. The second issue is what would what are the main issues? And I'd love to hear what Jim thinks that we're going to galvanize around. Is it going to be tax cuts on the wealthy, or is it going to be, infrastructure? I don't know if you're going to get a large group of people marching on Washington on in new investments in infrastructure. So, look, I love it, but I would be curious as to what would galvanize lots of people to come to Washington.
Well, and that takes me to a question from Chaz Rogers about the agenda. What are the top 3 issues President Obama ought to act on? Jim, we can start with you.
Okay, well, I'll certainly do one that I mentioned earlier, and that is get corporate money out of our politics. That's just a democracy destroyer right there. Now, they put a lot of money in this time and didn't win, but their response to that is going to be, we just didn't put enough money in, and they're going to come back with more. And I could name you some people who lost their election, who were very good people, who lost because they did not, because that huge sum of money crushed them. So that, to me, goes to every single issue that we care about, because until we get that big money out, then we're constantly fighting the same power structure. We need to do structural reform that makes a difference for all of the progressive groups. And by the way, we don't have to create the majority support for that. It is overwhelming. It's something in in Chicago, they voted 70-something percent, including 74% of Republicans for repealing Citizens United. So this is one that goes across all the lines, makes a huge difference, so it's worth the effort. If you win something worth winning.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. I think there are 2 ways to think about the Citizen United decision. One is to pass a law at the federal level that requires all contributions to be public, that there can be no secret contributions. So I think that would be, one, and it might mean that people won't be as willing to contribute, say where their contributions come from. And for instance, if you're at the Chamber of Commerce, you have to, and you're going to make political contributions, you have to describe where the contributions that you got come from. And I think that would be, you could do that in federal statute. Another idea, which actually is Howard Dean's, I give him credit for this, or Jim, you may have already talked about it, is pushing for a constitutional amendment, which although takes a long time and may not succeed immediately, at least gives people something to organize around, arguing that corporations are not, in fact, people.
You're listening to the post-election briefing brought to you by 21st Century Democrats, and we are speaking with radio commentator, columnist, and author Jim Hightower, as well as author and progressive advocate Kathleen Kennedy Townsend. Momentarily, we'll be joined by Sarah Benzing, the campaign manager of Senator Sherrod Brown's successful re-election race in Ohio. Kathleen, a listener named Jennifer is asking what the results tell us about changing demographics, both in terms of race and geography.
Oh, they're very exciting. Tell us about changing demographics in terms of Hispanics, growing number of Hispanics in the United States, and they are voting Democratic because they feel dissed by the Republican Party. As you know, California 20 years ago was a Republican state. They had Republican governors. And now, in the last election, they are going way Democratic. Why? Because that state is a very diverse state, and they're basically saying we don't think the Republican Party speaks to us. So that's, I would think, good for Democrats. And then, obviously, the fact that, and that's true for Hispanics, that's true for Asians, and absolutely true for African Americans. So we have a great opportunity there. Now, if I were Republican, I would get my act together and change their immigration policy as quickly as possible.
Okay, and we have another one for you, Kathleen. Rod Silvers writes, how do we bring more Christians over to the Democratic side?
Oh, thank you so much for asking that, Rob. I think, and as you know, that is what I've written about. I think Christians very much do understand that the message of the Bible, and you can talk to Rick Warren, who was believed one way a long time ago and is, sort of inched over to a different side, realize that the main message of our Christianity is the care for the poor, the sick, the homeless, the helpless, the prisoners. I mean, you look at Matthew, and that's really what he's most interested in, not sex and not abortion, which is not mentioned once in the Bible. So what I believe you need to do is, for those who are secular or those who say get religion out of politics, you've got to say, no, get the right religion in. Every single progressive movement that we've had in this country, except for the last two, the gay rights and the women's movement, which is now changing a little bit about this, had a religious underpinning. And people in America believe in, are very religious, and my view is you've got to use that aspect to reach people and to show that you respect their faith. They feel very dissed by secularists at times, and my thought is that you've got to reach out. I think that as far as that's on, on a large scale, I think on the smaller scale, I love the nuns. Clearly, they have been able, for the first time, I would say, in their history, to stand up against the bishops, a shock to the Vatican, and important to do. On an earlier call today, I suggested that the progressives go to the Vatican and say we can do better. And I'll just give you a story about that. The John Sweeney, former head of the AFL-CIO, and Tom Buffenberger, head of the Machinists Union, went to the Pope and said to him, we need to do a better job of having the Catholic Church reach out to unions and to working men and women. That's a long tradition of the Catholic Church, and it is being lost. In fact, in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, there were 300 labor organizing schools. So the Pope actually agreed with them and wrote a letter to Dolan of New York and said, you've got to do a better job of reaching out, and there is now a project run by the bricklayers. They have a priest on board, and he is recruiting labor priests throughout the United States. So one of the things is you've got to, rather than be afraid of the faith, reach out.
Okay. And I think we have Sarah Benzing with us. Is that right? Sarah, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great.
Yes,
okay.
I'm here.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Sarah Benzing, the campaign manager of Senator Sherrod Brown's successful re-election race in Ohio. And Sarah, since we have you, we have a listener by the name of R. Kit Katapa wonders if Democrats should examine how to win states and congressional districts that went solidly Republican. And the second follow-up to that is, how did Senator Brown do in Republican areas?
That's a great question, and actually something I've been thinking about as we moved into the final days of the campaign and then after. I think structurally, when we think about how do Democrats win in traditionally Republican areas, sometimes I think we have to examine how we choose to communicate with people, especially in rural areas, and what kind of neighbor-to-neighbor program are we creating that works in a person's network. So how do we make sure that the right validators are talking to the right person? And, neighborhoods aren't, organizing in neighborhoods sometimes isn't as effective as organizing within a community that you already belong. If it's your church or where you work, or even, where you go to the gym, that we're communicating in a network and we're allowing volunteers to plug in persuadable voters and also, examine the non-traditional contact. I know I always use my mom, who lives in really rural Republican Iowa, and she goes to her bridge club and is a Democrat and talks about politics with the ladies at bridge club. And I think all those conversations are great. And also, how do we quantify that contact? The second is, I think anytime someone runs, you have to be true to who you are. You shouldn't waffle on the issues. I've been pretty lucky to always work for people who stand up for what they believe in, even if it's sometimes not the most politically expedient position. And the third is, we can't ever give Republicans a moment to breathe. I think one of the successes that we had here in Ohio was the campaign started almost 2 years out, really putting the fire to Mandel's feet, holding him accountable for things that were happening in the treasurer's office, and using, a year leading up to the point when really everybody started to pay attention to frame who Josh Mandel was in the press, and then use those headlines to, I think, create some really effective TV ads. So I think, I think that's one way to go. Here in Ohio, our map did not look like 2006. In 2006, Sherrod won Medina County, for example. We lost it. It looked very much like the president's map. We outperformed him in the Mahoning Valley, and in Appalachia, where the president didn't carry a few counties, we actually did. But our map, we knew going in, like I said, I think our pollster had let Sherrod know after 2010 that the Ohio map would not look like what it looked like in 2006. So I hope that's helpful.
Absolutely, yeah. And now we're going to turn to Jim Hightower. A listener named Maribel wants to know how serious the president is about addressing climate change. What will it take from us to get this issue to the top of his agenda?
Well, it's going to take us getting in his face. Obviously, this was barely mentioned in the campaign by either of the major party candidates. Though I will say the Green Party talked about it a lot. Of course, that message wasn't getting out there because they're not getting coverage. But these kind of issues are fundamental. There are many more, by the way, that were avoided altogether. I do a lot of work with farmers and food artisans around the country, and that topic was not addressed. That's a huge segment of our economy. Yet the word farmer was not said in any of the debates. So there's a range of these issues that we have to go to, and following up on what was just said there by Sarah, one of the things we've got to have to communicate with whether it's Republicans or independents or even our own party is we have to have more candidates like Sherrod Brown and Elizabeth Warren and the Mazie Hirono out in Hawaii. She's terrific. People who can communicate and not just communicate but have policies that matter to people. They're talking about what's on those people's minds. Good jobs at good wages, health care for everybody, good schools, based not on tests but on good teachers, right on down the line. Those are the things people respond to. And, I'm calling in here from Austin, Texas, a state that is considered just hardcore red. But the fact is...
You're going to go blue.
Texas, exactly. Texas has not turned right-wing, has not turned Republican. It's turned non-voting. When Rick Perry, a guy who really puts the goober in gubernatorial, by the way, when he was reelected in 2010, we had the lowest turnout in the country. We had 32% of the people vote. He's the choice of about 18%. And this new guy, this Ted Cruz guy, is going to go to the U.S. Senate. He's a complete nut. You're going to discover that. He's elected by a fraction of the people of our state. The problem is the Democrats aren't getting 19%. And that's the kind of organizing we have to do, but also the kind of candidates we have to recruit to be able to communicate with those folks so that they are hearing themselves in our political message and saying, yeah, okay, now it's worthwhile. I'll go vote. And obviously we have the Latino vote coming on very strong. We're building here. We gained one congressional seat this time. And we have a new state party chair who's committed to grassroots, committed to recruiting and training of our candidates and campaign managers, et cetera. Just the kind of obvious stuff that our party used to do that we got away from. So to me, you don't have to be in who's who to know what's what. And what's what is we're not even getting our own people.
I just
and
like
the way
I
to do that
listen to
is
you.
to say something they want to do.
All right, now we have a new tweet for Kathleen from Catholics United. Hi, KKT. The middle class is important, but we don't have to advocate for the poor too. But don't we have to advocate for the poor too? Pardon me. We'll drive turnout if you lead the march. So there's pressure on you, Kathleen, to march on Washington, I guess.
That sounds great. Well, I would love to. I mean, I really think that what we need to do is care about all of us. And I really believe that Barack Obama has done a lot more for poor than has been recognized. I mean, the fact is the health care for Obamacare has been really terrific. And, I think that's very helpful. Obviously, we could do a much better. I mean, one of the biggest challenges being poor is to be healthy, and then we need better jobs and we need better schools. And I think Barack Obama has really tried to, reform and change our education system so that we will have, as one of the previous speakers said, the best teachers. So I think that I think we can fight for the poor and fight for the poor to be better off. You're exactly right, and that's what Catholics should be doing. So, thank you.
Okay, well, and thank you. And I know that both Jim and Kathleen are a little pressed for time.
I am.
Go ahead.
Right. I have to leave now. I think this is really ironic. I've made this phone call from the Chamber of Commerce, so just to tell you. There
you go.
I don't know what they knew. I know, it's really funny.
But
they don't know if they knew what was going on in their very offices. But good luck to everybody.
Kathleen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Take care. Bye.
Okay, and Jim, do you have time for one more?
Sure.
Great. Okay, so we got a... Granny D wants some help, Jim. She says Oklahoma Democrats lost their only congressional seat, and she wants to know how to help Democrats in the state. She says, we're feeling mighty lonely out here.
Well, I was in Tulsa a couple of years ago with the Democratic Party, and when I would tell people I'm going to visit with the Tulsa Democrats, they thought, well, are there any there? And it turns out there were. There was a big crowd there. We had the same thing in Oklahoma City, and that state has a hard core of Democrats. So you start with what you have, and then begin to reach out in every way that Sarah and Kathleen has been saying on this call. And do it not just in the political year, but most importantly with those personal relationships that you have, reminding people that Jesus spoke more in the Bible about economic justice issues than any other secular topic, and reminding people that things like Obamacare actually works for ordinary people, and just having conversations, really, not proselytizing, not saying vote for my candidate at this point, but just talking to them about issues. And mostly you'll find that people are with us on the issues. Everything, as I said, from Citizen United, massive support for that at the 80% level, to good jobs at good wages. Who doesn't want that? Well, Wall Street doesn't want it. For one, they're willing to have jobs, but not good-paying jobs, and certainly not union jobs. So we have just a terrific organizing opportunity out there, because the issues that we believe in and the kind of policy suggestions that we have resonate with ordinary people. But we get so tied up in kind of internal congressional battles and sometimes so caught up in just words and volumes of words and volumes of the audible level of our arguments that we lose what it is we're trying to communicate. Van Jones once pointed out that the liberals sometimes have too many facts, too many points to make, talking points, rather than just telling people stories. He points out that Martin Luther King Jr. At the March on Washington in 1963 did not say, I have a position paper. He said, I have a dream, and then he proceeded to paint that dream in just eloquent ways. Well, we're not all eloquent, but we can tell stories, and we can use a little bit of humor, too, in communicating with folks. And so if we do that, I think you'll get people listening to you, and we definitely have a message that they would want to hear.
All right. Now, and I know that you are pressed for time, Jim, so we will let you go. We appreciate your time with us today. Jim Hightower, of course. You can listen to him every week on our program, americasdemocrats.org. Jim, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, and thanks to 21st Century Democrats for pulling this together.
Absolutely. Yep. We appreciate your time with us today. All right. Now, Sarah Benzing, we have a question for you, and I believe we have Jerry Glover on the line as well. Jerry, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. Jerry is, of course, on the board of directors with 21st Century Democrats. So I'm going to throw this out to both of you. And Sarah, why don't we start with you? Amy Perlmutter asks or says, while I am happy that our efforts kept this country from shifting farther right, it concerns me that Howard Dean's 50-state approach seemed to be dropped. Your thoughts about this?
I definitely don't think the 50-state strategy has been all dropped. When I talk to my colleagues from around the country, state parties, I think, for the most part, are in better shape than they were, when I started in political campaigning in 1999-2000. We have most states up on a voter activation network, so we have a better handle on data. We have a better handle on who to communicate and when. I think with Howard Dean and the president's campaigns, really engaging young people to be involved in politics, if it's not in a paid capacity but in a volunteer way, that we've had several successful presidential candidates who have really invested in activating a whole new group of people to be involved in the Democratic Party. I know that 2012 was a little different than 2008. For instance, the Obama campaign, I know, had staff in Louisiana in 2008. I'm sure this time they didn't. I think some of that does have to do with Citizens United. Here in Ohio, SHERROD, we had over $1 million spent against SHERROD and outside groups. That's more money than any Senate candidate in U.S. history has had spent against them by outside sources. So it becomes very difficult to do a 50-state strategy when you are facing down so much money. So I think some of it was consolidating efforts just to make sure that we were able to elect the president and some of our key senators. But I do think, as Democrats, we do have to examine back how do we beat back Citizens United, and how do we open up the map. And I hope that's helpful.
Absolutely. Jerry, your thoughts?
Well, I think we go back to, Clinton did not run a 50-state strategy, certainly in 96. He did have to. The reality is you have to focus and win. And given the fact that the other side has so much money directly and indirectly, I think you have to put your money where to win, and I think that's something the president did. What was pleasant for me was how many races we saw in the Senate, how many of those turned around. Now, clearly the House was a problem, and in some of those non-swing states, the fact that there wasn't a lot of presidential coattails may have hurt some of the other candidates. But I think you have to look at what works, and the first thing is we want to win, and the focus on key states has worked very nicely, and but I think that we have to find some way to do something in the other states, because it does trickle down to the Senate races and the House races, and as we need to do more, that's going to be more of a challenge. Let me give a plug to presidentialdata.org, which is a 21st Century Democrat site. You're going to hear a lot of the sky is falling, the economy is going to crash. And on that presidentialdata.org site, it compares the previous presidents and how the economy works, and you'll see that the Democratic presidents have done very well. And the surprising fact to me each year is that the stock market always does better under Democrats than it does under Republicans. And we go back to, Harry Truman's old statement, if you want to live like a Republican, you vote Democratic. And that still holds true today. So as people are running around saying the sky is going to fall, the economy will go bad, the business will crash, just go back and look at history. Democrats' broad approach to helping everybody seems to have resulted in a much better economy.
Okay.
Everything from jobs to employment. So.
All right. Now, Sarah, Donna Halper asks, what are the chances of introducing a bill to reverse Citizens United or a bill to mandate disclosure of donors' names?
I think that that's very likely. Many of you on this call know that this has sort of been, Sherrod has been on top of Citizens United and been for a constitutional amendment. It's tough when we don't have control of the House, but I do think if we message this right and make Citizens United very understandable to, everyday voters who might not be as politically involved as we are, they're mad. If they don't know it's Citizens United, voters understand that there's a lot of money in politics, and it's educating them on what it means and where the money is coming from. Again, here in Ohio with almost $40 million outside spending, Sherrod liked to say it was big oil, big pharma, Wall Street banks who weren't happy with him, and he's absolutely right. So disclosure and, getting rid of corporate funds out of politics, I think, is going to be on everyone's mind. So.
Okay. Now, I've got another question for you, Sarah. This coming from Fred Yonts, who asks, what can be done to avoid Republican senators' abuse of filibuster rules, which have kept the Senate tied up on big issues like climate change and immigration? Is it time to consider reforming filibuster rules? Would it make a real difference in making progress on those big issues, or does it not matter anyway because of the GOP-controlled House?
That's a great question. I do think it would be helpful to take a look at the filibuster rule, and so there can be more of a dialogue in the Senate. It is, I was prior to working for Senator Brown, I was chief of staff on Capitol Hill for an Iowa member of Congress, and I can tell you from hearing from my old Democratic friends over there, the House, it is very hard to get anything done with the Tea Party sort of taking control of the Republican Party. It makes it hard for even Republican leaders who may want to be able to negotiate and to compromise to do that. We had a House member here who resigned or left his seat and didn't run for re-election. And maybe some of you caught it on CBS Sunday Morning, but he basically said it's become impossible to compromise as a Republican, with Democrats. If you compromise, things are taken away from you. You don't get the spots in committee that you need to help push things forward. And, I think the House is is going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. So.
Okay. Now, you're not done, Sarah.
Senator Harkin.
Go ahead, Jerry. Go ahead.
Yeah, Senator Harkin had a proposal along with some other senators, and in our after the last election, midterm election, he was suggesting that the filibuster reform was needed to make things happen. He didn't get enough votes to make it happen, but sort of stay tuned. I suspect they'll be coming back with that proposal. So the caller should recognize that there are some proposals out there that would make it easier for the Senate to get things done and to block and to weaken the filibuster stranglehold on the Senate. So you may see something coming back out of that.
Okay. Now, Sarah, before we let you go, Philip Rotondi with the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare Rights. Although he did better than the president, reportedly Senator Brown lost the 65-plus vote, 46% to 52%. How do you account for this, and what does it mean for Social Security and Medicare in the upcoming debt negotiations?
I'd have to look at our own polling for that. Heading into the election just 3 or 4 days out, we were doing okay with the 65-plus crowd. I think for some of that, seniors are not they're not immune from the other ads that are up on TV. Yes, seniors care about preserving Medicare and Social Security. Our opponent said that he would be for re-examining Medicare. He would be for raising the age of the Social Security age for people who want to retire. And those are issues that, Senator Brown is adamantly opposed to any major fundamental changes to Medicare and, raising the age of retirement for Social Security. However, we had a barrage of other ads up at the same time. Sherrod Brown doesn't pay his taxes but raises yours, regardless whether or not that was true or not. They're not immune from the tax argument, but we do win when it comes to talking about Medicare and Social Security. But, again, we're dealing with seniors also hearing other messages out in the ether, positive and negative from our opponent. So.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you very much. I really wish we had more time, but we do have to bring this special briefing to a close. Thank you to Jim Hightower, Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, Sarah Benzing, and Jerry Glover. And, of course, thanks to all of our listeners. Remember, you can hear timely and informative interviews with progressive thinkers and authors every Sunday. AmericasDemocrats.org, a program sponsored by 21st Century Democrats. This Sunday, November 11th, look for post-election analysis from former Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle and from campaign guru John Halpin. Thanks very much for joining us. We want you to sit back and listen, but we need you to stand up and fight. Join us. Support the show and help elect Democrats who will stand up for democratic principles with your contribution today. Go to americasdemocrats.org and